Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Unlocked. I'm your host Tracy Wilson. Awesome to be here with you guys today on this beautiful Wednesday morning here in Australia. And look, my camera's just gone a little bit crazy. If you guys are listening to me right now, you're on a podcast. That is super cool because I want you guys to hang around. Maybe you might want to listen to some of the other podcast episodes that you can find on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, so on and so forth. I am everywhere. So if you enjoy listening to the Unlocked show, you can go and binge listen all you like on the podcast version. If you are watching today from Facebook or from YouTube, hello to you guys. What you can do today is you can chat with me in the chat box. So what you want to do is make sure that you give StreamYard permission to be able to see you, because if you're chatting away to me during today's show, I want to be able to answer you and say hello back. So firstly, let me know where you guys are actually tuning in from today. As you know, if you've been listening for a little while or this is your very first time, I'm based on the Gold Coast of Australia, and right now it's the middle of winter, but boy, oh boy, beautiful blue sky and an amazing day today, and got a bit of camping ready to go for the weekend, so we're pretty excited about that, and hopefully this weather stays good, because usually when Tracy says she's going camping, it pours with rain or we get some sort of lockdown, so I'm hoping I'm not going to jinx that. So anyway, let's get stuck into today's show, shall we? What I want to talk about today is some of the big mistakes that a lot of people make when creating their own show, such as the Unlock show. So again, if you guys have been following me for a little while, you know that I do a lot of coaching and training with people, and I help them create their own online shows that help them to build their influence and their authority. It helps them to build connection with their audience, and then it also helps them to build their exposure, because so many people out there, particularly if you're an infopreneur, an entrepreneur, you know, we have these moments where we're just completely overwhelmed by the amount of work that you have to do to try and get your information and your ideas out there, and it can take a lot of time and effort. So I show them how to do it in less than 2 hours a week using a really unique way of doing it. It all starts with creating your own show. But I want to sort of share with you guys, firstly, if you're somebody that's sitting around here thinking, I'd really like to, I've got to find a way to be able to get my information and my message out there, and I'm not really sure about how to do it. And you want a quick, I'm not going to say easy, because they're not always easy, and sometimes the easy things are not easy long term, right? And we know that they don't always work. So I'm going to say a quick way of being able to create your content, but also be able to build your influence, build your authority, and give you an ability to be able to create all of your social media content, you know, really, I'm going to say easily, all right, because it all stems from you doing one show. So if that sounds like you, then you want to hang around, because I'm going to share with you some of the top mistakes that a lot of people make, and then I'm also going to share with you some things that you can actually do to get yourself off of the ground really fast. All right, so the first thing I'm going to say is that most people procrastinate. Most people, this is going to sound really friggin' obvious, and I was actually listening to a podcast earlier in the week from Gary Vee, and somebody on his show was asking him, Gary, I want to start my own podcast, and I want to be able to get out like 100 episodes really fast, and I've managed to get my first 5 shows done, but my editor is like dragging the chain on this. He is taking his time. He's not getting the stuff out as fast as I need him to. I want it to look just a certain way. It needs to be perfect when it goes out, and I don't know what to do. And Gary Vee's response to him was, well, mate, look, you can do a couple of things. One is you can hire someone, and I'm assuming that you know, you've hired this guy now. You were telling me that you hired him. Let's put it in inverted commas. You got him to volunteer to be your editor. He's taking some time, and I'm gathering that because you've got him to volunteer, you know, you're probably not in a position to be able to pay somebody. Is that right? And the guy said yes. And then Gary kind of went on to ask him some more questions, and got to the guts of what Gary was about to say, using his, you know, the F-bombs that he does. And he said something to this guy, just effing get started, mate. Like, most people think that I sat around and that I was gathered all of my materials, all of my tools, resources. I had fantastic lighting. I had the best audio and everything when I get started. And Gary said, that is absolute BS. I did not have any of that. I literally picked up my phone and I just started talking. So all I needed, like all you need when you want to start your own show or a podcast, you need to have a point of view. All right. So you need to be able to have your point of view. You want to be able to talk about that and be able to share it. You need to have commitment, because you want to be able to, you want to turn up and do it religiously and not let people down, because nobody wants to go to a podcast or a show they've listened to, they found it great, and then all of a sudden it's disappeared into into the wilderness. Don't want that. And then the third thing you need to have is like work ethic to just keep going, even in the times where things get tough, shit happens, family happens, things go on. That's life. We just carry on, and we just have the tenacity to be able to just keep going. So I found it really fascinating when I was listening to Gary Vee a little bit earlier, and he was very, as Gary is, very direct with his viewer, and just said, just cut the bullshit and just get it done. So the first thing I'm going to say, the big mistake most people make, is that they just don't get started. They sit in procrastination mode. I wish, I hope, I wonder if I could, and they never ever just push the go live button and start actually speaking about what it is that they are passionate about. The second mistake that most people make, and I've alluded to this already in Gary's conversation with his audience member, is that you think you've got to go and buy all of the fanciest equipment. So many people get held back because they think, oh, I don't have the right amount I don't have money right now to be able to go and buy a fancy camera or fancy lighting, or set up an amazing background, or to get the right kind of audio, etc. And again, Gary's response to that is, just even get started, mate. Just go. Just pick up that phone and just push go live. And now that there are so many ways that you're able to share your information, particularly in the social space. I don't know if you guys have seen, but just in the last week or so, I've seen Facebook come out with their new, I'm going to say it's almost in competition with Clubhouse, where you're now able to go live in a chat room on Facebook. So it's just directly on Facebook. You can set up your own room and just start having the conversation. And that's actually where I heard Gary's conversation happening, was inside of the Facebook Facebook Live studio. So that is now available to you. And of course, you can set up a complete studio like I've got here, using some great tools like StreamYard, which is a fantastic tool to be able to get your message out there. So don't think that you have to wait until you have a whole lot of all of the right equipment. The equipment definitely does help. It increases the production level of your show. But do you have to have that when you're starting out? Heck no. The most important thing is that you just get started and you start sharing your message. The next thing that I'm going to say is that people want to wait until they're ready. They think, oh, I'm not ready to do that yet. I don't have the right level of confidence. I'm not sure how to do it. There's some very specific things that you want to ensure that you do. Little simple things like looking down the barrel of the camera, speaking really confidently, obviously knowing your stuff before you get started, so that you can speak without a lot of ums and ahs. That makes a lot of difference. And you just showing up and being, speaking with a level of conviction and passion about what it is that you believe in, makes a huge amount of difference. That's the thing that draws people in. That's the thing that gets people to stick around and want to continue to listen to what you've got to say. So not the fancy equipment, not the fancy lighting, not your fancy background. I mean, I've seen people do really, really well with just their phone and, sitting on a beach or sitting on a bench seat and nothing fancy about it. So, let's just take that excuse completely off of the table and just get started. And what you'll find is that when you get started, you'll just get better and better and better at it. The confidence will grow. And like I've said in other shows, you will find that, by the time you get to about your 12th show, you're starting to have some real transformation happen simply by showing up and starting to talk. Because in an environment like this, you can't just click off. I can't just push, in the broadcast and just stop it there when I get a little bit nervous. You just keep going. You keep speaking about, what it is that you're there for in that moment to speak about and to share. Okay, the next thing I'm going to say is that a lot of people don't do their research before they get started. This is a biggie, and this is something that I would recommend that you do. After today's show, I'm going to be putting a link in the description section that will enable you to go and get my free show planner. What it's going to enable you to do is just kind of settle in the moment and think about, how do I want to create my show? What is the purpose? Why the heck am I even doing this? And what I'm just going to pop this up because Sean Olsen is saying, live equals committed in the moment. Absolutely. You have no choice, right? You're committed to this. It's like, jumping off out of a plane. It's not like you can go, oh my God, I need to go back, take me back, parachute, put me back in the plane. It doesn't. You're committed. You've jumped. You just got to keep going. So you're absolutely right there, Sean. So the document that I'm going to provide to you is going to help you to settle in the moment. It's going to help you to do a little bit of research and think about, why do I want to do a show? When your why is big enough, you have that level of commitment that just keeps you motivated to keep showing up, to keep sharing what it is that you believe in, that you feel so strongly about. So the document that I'm going to give you is going to walk you through some very specific things that you want to think about. In particular, and again, this is one of the mistakes that a lot of people make, is they go way too broad with their show or their podcast. So they're trying to speak to a really large audience on multiple different topics, and there is definitely a place and a time for that, and it depends on what type of show you're trying to create. And I'm speaking specifically about the types of shows that connect your products, your services, and your offers to what it is that you are talking about. So I very much teach people to do this, about how to create your back end offer, your product, your service, whatever it is that you're selling, and then creating your show based around that, and really having some deep thought about how you can do that and what sort of topics might resonate with your audience. So that's a really, really important piece of this puzzle, because if you go too wide, then your audience shows up and they're not really sure what it is that you're going to be speaking about. They're not sure how it fits in, and you're probably going to find yourself, not making any sales and not doing very well with your business because there's a misalignment. So really important that you do that little piece of work. The last piece that I'm going to say, well, the next piece I'm going to say in here is they don't schedule it in. And kind of Sean Olsen has actually he's touched on this here. Live equals committed. I'm going to talk more about this commitment piece. So one of the things that I find, and I have a lot of people come to me saying, I want to start my own show, or I've tried that before and it didn't work. I just didn't stick to it. The reason that most people don't stick to it is because they don't make it a regular occurrence. You want to think about it as if you're like Oprah Winfrey, or you're like Ellen, or those guys that show up every single week. They're on daytime television and they have a time slot. You want to create yourself a time slot in your diary so that your audience knows you're going to show up at that time, and you know you are going to show up at that time. So I guarantee you, if you don't do that, you will find every excuse under the sun as to why now's not the good time for me. Stuff's going on in my life. The kids have just shown up. Grandkids have just walked in the door. Whatever it is, that sort of stuff will happen if you do not schedule in the time. Really important. And when you do that, it also enables you to be able to create some boundaries. You're able to share the time slots that you are going to go live. All of my family now know 10 a.m. on a Wednesday and on a Friday, I go live. So don't come near me at that time because you won't get me. Don't call me. Don't try and turn up. Just ain't going to happen. My commitment is to my audience at those times. So really important that you schedule in that time, and it will really help you to stay committed to your process. Okay, the other thing that I've realized or noticed that a lot of people don't do is that they don't plan out their topics. So they don't plan and think about what are the topics. And again, some of this takes a little bit of research. And when you get going with your shows, and you're starting to reimagine them into other types of content, blogs, podcasts, so on and so forth, you can start getting some real data and some real information on the sorts of things that your audience like. So I know know that by doing today's show, I actually went and did a bit of research, and I noticed that people were wanting to start their own show, but there are a whole lot of things that hold them back. And I noticed that previous shows where I spoke about this particular topic, other people were interested in it. So what do? I speak about it again. And you want to do the same. So you want to really think about the topics, and you could potentially even plan out, 100 topics is really easy to come up with when you have a system and a process to follow to create those topics. And the other thing that people don't do is they don't connect their show with their product or service. And I talked about this a little bit earlier in today's show already, is that, I talk about how being unlocked, but how to speak about what it is that you believe in a very unlocked, a very natural way, with conviction, with commitment, and with a level of confidence that connects to what it is that I teach about, what it is that I share with people, because I firmly believe that this is a fantastic way of being able to share your expertise, share your knowledge, be able to refine your skill, be able to get really, really good at speaking out, speaking to a crowd of people. So I could take this method that I'm doing here and would have no problem speaking on a stage, because it's the same thing. Once you gain that level of confidence, and you know your subject matter, you then are able to wrap a system and a process around that, and you can speak about that in any format you like, whether it be online like this, or whether it be in an auditorium speaking to a bunch of people on a stage. So those are a few of the things that I think are big mistakes that people make that prevent them from starting their own show. Lastly, I want to share with you, these are 3 big tips that you need to make sure you do. And inside of the document that I'm going to give you, which is the show planner worksheet, will enable you to sort of sit down and work out, what could I talk about? What could my show be about? Well, allow you that moment to be able to do a bit of research, is that you want to make sure that you use this method. This is a method we call the ACE method, and it's a method that helps you to build your authority. So whenever you're creating your own show or a podcast, one of the main reasons that you're doing that is to establish a level of authority and to become a sought after expert in your industry. That's one of the main reasons you would want to do this. So you want to make sure that whatever you're doing when you're creating your own show is that it is up leveling your level of authority. And the second is that you want to make sure that you're building a connection with your audience. The way that you do that is by narrowing down, niching down, you would have heard that terminology, niching down and getting very specific on the subject matter that you share. You want to do that because then you're going to get loyal followers that are going to want to tune in, and they are already interested in what it is that you talk about. So get very specific. Specificity is key here. Get very specific about what it is that you're talking about to build that connection. And again, you want to build the connection around knowing and understanding what your audience's pain points are and what they're struggling with, so that you can help them with it. Really important you do that piece. And the third piece in the ACE method is exposure. So the one thing that I know for sure is that when you are online, and there are millions and millions and millions of people online in LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, so on and so forth, on at any second during any day, they are able to see, or potentially able to see, your information if you do video, and they will get familiar with who you are. They'll get familiar with the sound of your voice, the look of you, the look of you. They'll get familiar with your face, and when they see that, they will want to tune in. So really important that you're doing that on a regular basis. If you're not doing it and you're like, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait until I'm ready to start, which maybe never, you might never ever feel like you're ready, but you just got to jump out of that plane. Like I said, you'll never ever have the level of exposure that you need. And you just start, you start small, and you'll have the ripple effect. You start with one person that might notice you, then there's 2, and then there's 10, and then before you know it, you've got 100. And to make a really good business out of, doing having an online type of business, you really only need 100 true fans. And I'll talk about that in another episode. But that is what you need to do to kind of get yourself started. The first thing I'm going to say, I won't use all of Gary V's words, because sometimes they're a little bit the F word I don't like to use too often. So I'll just say the F word. You just effing have to get going, right? You just have to start. No matter how bad you think you are to get started, just get going, because I promise you, as you start, doing one show and then the next show and then the next show and the next show, you will get better and better and better at it. Practice makes progress, and over time you will find yourself being able to just click the go live button and just speak about any topic you like with very little preparation. So there you go, guys. Those are my tips for, or the big mistakes, I should say, that a lot of people make before they get themselves started and creating their own show. And if you want to know more about how to do this, then I would recommend you go to two places. The first is head on over to, let me pop this into, I'll pop it on a banner here. Let me just pop this in here. Let me get this up. And it is show dash planner. There we go. Let me just save that, pop it up on the screen for you. There you go. So if you head on over to tracymwilson.com/show-planner, that's where you could get a copy of that planner from. And the second place you can go to find out more about what I'm talking about and how to create your own show, and why this is like an opportunity for you to do it right now, because there's lots of stuff that have changed. COVID has changed the way that we do things. You could also head on over to, where is it? Influenceandauthority.com. There we go. So www.influenceandauthority.com. Go and check out, go there, and you'll be able to find that there is some more training on how to get yourself up and running using the ACE method. And that will help you to start your own show, and you will see why it is a fantastic thing to do. I'm a bit biased because I think this is one of the best things I've ever done, is actually get myself up and running and creating my own show. And I would love for you guys to be able to do the same. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I will be back again. I'm not going to be here on Friday, but next Wednesday I will be back with another live episode of Unlocked. And if you've got anything specific that you want to ask about creating your own live show, then message me. Go to Tracy Wilson on Tracy M. Wilson on Facebook and just shoot me a message, and I'll be sure to share it, share my insights and my advice and tips and tools and what have you, based on your question in a upcoming episode. All right, guys, hope you have a fantastic week, and fingers crossed for me that the weather stays really beautiful and that we get to have a rain-free weekend so I can go camping without coming home soaking wet. All right, guys, have a great week, and I'll see you guys again next week. Bye for now.